Hey guys, got me another little project. It's a 48-inch auger, and some of you may know what's wrong with this thing just by looking at it, but for those that don't, I will give you a clue. It is right here. You see that? It doesn't cut. Customer said the manufacturer made it wrong. Like, well, it's not necessarily that. My thoughts on this is that these machines, drilling machines, foundation machines, have so much down pressure, or what they call crowd, that as this is touching the ground, what happens is that, man, it creates a lot of heat. They get really, really hot. And so with that heat, it just slowly tends to warm it up right in this area. Right in this area right here, to where it causes this. This flattens out. So now level is right here and just skimming the top of the rock. And that happens with a lot of these. And this other side over here, I guess that side wasn't contacting hardly enough. And so this side took the abuse. And it just wore these nubs down to nothing. That's a good one right there. And so there are a couple ways of fixing this. You could try and cut this guy off here. Sorry. Make a cut right along this area right here. Just a pierce cut through here. Leave it attached right in this area. Cut through this spot here, between one of the teeth, or pockets I should say, and slowly fold this down with heat. Heat it all back up and these teeth will point back down, which is good. It's a definite easier way of doing it. However, it doesn't really solve the issue as far as making sure you're really accurate. So if I was out in the field and needed to make this repair, that's the way I would do it. Just fix it like that, keep them running, and they'd be happy. And the only bad part is you would notice the kink wherever this would be, right in this area. But now, since I got it in the shop, the customer decided to let me go ahead and cut all of these pockets right off. Cut them babies off right there. And I'm gonna try and cut back about maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches right in there, all the way up in here, so that we get away from this flattened out spot. And that way I can put a whole new set of pockets on there and at a better angle of attack, as pilots would say, I guess. But anyway, I won't bore you guys with doing all the teeth, because it's 24 teeth. It's quite a bit. I just show you guys a little pointers on how to pull this off, if in case you guys try and do this yourselves. It's not that tough. It's just a lot of work, just as with anything else, right? You eat an elephant one bite at a time. So hang tight, and hopefully I can keep you along for the for the length of the video, because I know it's kind of monotonous, I guess, after a while. And I really appreciate if you stick around and subscribe if you can. It doesn't hurt. It's free. It's maybe you'll learn something. So hang tight, and we will start on this baby right here. See ya. So next step is to try and see if I'm going to turn this auger over and get the pilot bit off of it. So I'm going to be attaching my fixture to it so that I can determine where to make the cuts and how to measure off of the depth for each tooth and each tooth spacing. So here we go. Okay, so here we are. I sort of cleaned it up a little bit. What I end up doing is preheating this guy around here, and it'll swell up just a little bit to be able to knock these off. These guys never come off because they get twisted on so hard, and some people even weld these together. So I'm glad they didn't, because they already are tough enough as it is. And here you see where some of the grooves, where when these teeth go down, these grooves are wearing because that rock is rubbing on it. Now this one's had a little bit of damage. Right in this area here, and I think that's some type of hard surfacing rod, which is really going to stink because hard surfacing does not like to get cut with a torch. So, you know, I just might, I don't know yet. I'm going to have to decide. I might just cut around this pattern and just set the teeth at the right spot, based on the same pattern. I can cut these. Well, these are wore off. You can't see it. I can cut these pretty good, just around the perimeter, and then that whole section will fall right off. And I can just put the teeth at the proper angles, and then we'd be good. Again, I'll have to take this off and put in my bar that I use to measure the depth. Hopefully if they're the same between this side and that side, then you know it'd be easy enough just to replace each one of those teeth and set them back where they're at, and make smaller adjustments instead of cutting all brand new, completely new. That saved me a lot of headache, I think, but I'm not exactly sure just yet. I've done several of these, but most of them I do end up just cutting it all off right here and just starting with new cutouts for each of these pockets. But this looks like it might work. Who knows? Don't know till you try. So I'll measure this height to the ground. Same thing on the other side. And if they're somewhere close, like within a ½ inch, I can adjust the height of the tooth pocket each side and make up for the difference. And then just go from there. That'll save me a lot of headache. All right, next step. Okay, so like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be trying to cut these off right behind the original weld, right in this area, and that way I can just follow the same pattern in a sense. But in this case, I'll just re-angle them as needed. Here we go. things at the beginning. That's crazy. Okay, so that worked out semi-okay. Now to put them back on, will be a neat little trick. That hard surface we don't want to cut. Well, I'm glad I got the basic pattern of it off. Pretty cool. Got them all off in one shot. I guess it's stuck over here because of the hard surface right around the corners. Either way, from here at least I have a decent starting point, and this will be my 0 once I clean that up. I'll probably have to grind all this junk off. It's a mess. I don't like a hard surface, and here too, probably gouge it off. So I won't show you this next one because it's pretty much the same as that one, and I'll get these off, and then I'll start setting up my bar and cleaning up those things, these edges. I don't know if you guys heard me talking about zigzagging back and forth. I zigzag to get past the dirt pockets and junk that gets in between the pocket and the auger material, the flight material, and that really helps out a lot, because if you try and shoot your oxygen jet in a pocket of dirt, naturally it's going to go all over the place. But if you're already making a wide path for it, then that helps a lot. And it doesn't have to be much. It could be just about a 1/8 inch wide or so, just a little zigzag. It makes the biggest difference. All right, so I guess I'll cut the other side off and catch up with you guys in a while. Yeah. But just in case this one falls off.
How about that? That's pretty good.
Almost fell off.
Yeah.
Whee.
You drop that on your toe with a soft shoe, and you'll remember it.
Won't do it again.
That's right.
All right, so I cut these guys off. It's pretty cool. I cut them all off in one shot. First time I ever do that. Came out pretty slick. However, I did run into a little bit of a problem. This is the bar I use to determine the height of each tooth point. And so here we are over an inch difference in the height over here, right in there. So my thoughts now, normally the pockets can make up for a little bit of difference. These here, when you install them like this, you have a little bit of adjustability, but not that much. So one would have to be way recessed, almost similar to that, and the other side would have to be really tall. So to avoid having to do that, it looks like this auger suffered some damage at some point, like a crack right in here. So with that, and most likely that's what caused this to fold down, and you can kind of see it right in this area right in here. So I kind of determined that this is my spot that I'm going to use, and what I'm going to do I cut a line right through here, right up somewhere in that area. And cut a line with a torch and leave this attached and get all the light. Leave this attached about 3/4 of an inch. Same up here. I will make it a relief cut, so it's going to be a little bit of a gap. And then from there, I will bend this up to the same height as the other side, and then re-weld it. I'll weld it first before I start putting the pockets on, to ensure that it's not going to move at that point. And so from there, I ran into another little bit of an issue. Looking at the front of the auger, this tooth here was not lined up correctly with this tooth here. So I'm most likely going to have to cut a new radius in this area. But it's not bad. I mean, I do it. That's normally how I do it. I just cut back. And this pocket here I left on just because, you know, it wasn't hurting anything. It looks all right. If anything, I'll scoop this next one back and start from there, and then start my offsets. So just a couple little things that you find when you start tearing these things apart. And you can see, I mean, it's visibly different. This side over here, less gap than this side here. So, you know, it is what it is. Just got to make up for it somehow. So this is what I'm going to do. Go ahead and cut this guy next. Jack it up, and then start fresh. So here we go. Use a little WD-40 to see the line. And it's not as flammable as people think, as far as when you put it on something like this. But it sure makes the line more visible. I'm going to go like from, let me see. Somewhere in here. Something like that. Oh man. Not real, man. Okay, that'll do it. It's not the straightest line, but it doesn't need to be straight. Had a little hiccup right there. If I got a glove on this hand, but I don't on this hand, so I ended up touching it with my knuckles. Dum dum. Okay, now I'll get the jack and start pressing up on here. Gotta be careful with some of these jacks because, you know, they don't like being all slanted. And you put some wood down there or something to kind of offset the crookedness of the flight, and then start either jacking it up. Some jacks are strong enough you can just bend it up because you have a little bit of section here touching. Same thing over here touching. And piece of cake. So okay, let me go get that. Could have used an impact, but I've been too loud. Getting a lot closer here. There you go. Touching right there. See that little kink I was telling you about? I don't really like that, but that'll actually work. So now at least all the pockets will be on the same level as far as welded height. So yeah, no. Let me show you over here. They created a bit of an opening at the bottom, so that's okay though. What I'll do is come in here with a torch, run a bevel right in there. Same thing on this side, run a bevel right in there. Weld this side up as much as I can, or get as deep as I can. That way it doesn't move. Man, I'm out of breath. It's crazy. And then start fresh. So I did mention you can see the kink right there, but it kind of goes in the same line. What? It was, I guess I could have gone a little bit further back right over here and it would have straightened out just at the right spot, but that's okay. It will still work. All right, next step. Okay, now this doesn't have to be the biggest bevel because it's already opening up over here. It's just something. Excellent. Looks like a big gap, because it is. So I'll just run the MIG, you know, kind of cold, you know, maybe like a, for the setting of like maybe a 3/16 weld. Tiny little weld, that way it bridges the gap and seals it up. And I can pour the heat into it, the top pass. And when I turn it over, I can do a real nice hot pass in there, almost like spray as well. I'm not going to be using my pulse machine. I don't got the settings right. And the wire I'm using is 045. I just haven't been able to figure it out in all these videos. 045. I normally run 035 and 030 in those machines. I thought I could use 045 to kind of make things faster. It no likey, and I don't like it. So I'll be using solid wire for this, and I can get the 030 to run pretty hot and real nice, and almost like a spray, even really, really hot, and really penetrate in there well. So now I'll let this cool for just a bit, and I'll actually let the pressure off of it, and hopefully it will relax in the down position just a little bit, like within 3/8 or so, 1/4 inch. I'm okay with that, because what's going to happen is as the weld starts, it'll naturally start pulling on the one side. So I'll let it cool, and then we'll get after it. I'm at the next point here, and I've already made the cut in the bevels. Did it right. So I'll put a weld up in this area here and try to hold it in position. I've got the jack holding it. Of course, it's going to want to come up, but being that it's radius, slight radius, it should hold itself from really peeling up too much or getting distorted in the upward side or in the upwards direction. So I'll put a seal weld, you know, maybe some cold 3/16 like setting, just to bridge that gap. And I might go ahead and weld this side and then pour it in real hot on the opposite side, you know, so that I get a full penetration weld there. This here, I've put a small bevel here, so I'll make sure that that's nice and hot so that it ties in well. Same thing at the top. That way you don't have to feather it out so far, come out to the edge. So now that's time to weld. Okay, so here you can see the gap. Decent sized gap. It's about a 1/4 inch or so. So as I was mentioning, I'll bridge that gap with a rather cold weld. Of course, it's tying into the sides, right? So even short circuit works fine. So then after that, I'll just pour in a really hot pass on top of that. And same thing on the opposite side. I won't have to run a cold pass because it's already a sealed root. Then I can just burn it in there real nice. So I'll continue on. blocked you guys, didn't I? So here we are. Seal that guy up. Brush it up a little bit. Throw a hot pass on it. Then we can flip it over. Get it welded. Then you got to flip it back over so I can get it to this position here. That way I can start working on setting up the teeth pockets. All right. I got it finished up. And a nice little weld along there. Now to flip it over, weld the underside. I already told you that. All right. Just in case. Next side. This one here is going to be tough because it's got a lot of hard surface up on there, so once I get past it, then it'll be fine, but it's not going to be fun. I'm going to try and cut underneath it that way and get rid of the top half. Much easier that way. Now I can get to that material. Tough stuff. So here we are at the next step. I had to cut these out because I didn't like where they were at originally. And what's happening here, I'm having difficulties because each of these curves, or each of these wings on the auger, the flights, are not the same on each side. So that's creating a little bit of a problem. That I figured I would set the first two teeth first. And so here's the spacing to keep it off the one side, where the opposite one will go in position over here. And you want them staggered. And once I get those, actually I'm going to try and mark a decent line this way, because you can see here, that's where the mark is over there on that corner. And they're way off. It's like almost 3 inches difference. And that's just not right. One side would, it probably didn't dig right, probably dug more on the one side than the other. That's kind of probably why one side took the abuse more than the other. So I'm going to try and straighten it out after I put those two on and kind of measure it out, make a radius of some sort. I really don't like making radiuses, but you know, some people like them, and that's the way it came, so I'm going to try and do the same thing. I just rather just put them straight across. It makes it so much easier for me, because I can just space them out accordingly, you know, to where they overlap properly. And spacing them out on a radius just kind of stinks because it's a little tough. But I mean, it is what it is, right? So I'll probably get that guy on there again, like I mentioned, and make some new cuts and try and proceed from there. Well, I'm not liking the direction I'm going right now. I'm having difficulties more than I expected. And like I mentioned, I don't really like having or working on augers that have this arch right here. I would rather have the arch start from there and work down, but this one's kind of an interesting curve. And it's just different manufacturers trying to make their own ideas, which is fine. You know, I'm sure they work and they got an idea or a plan as to why they do it that way. But one of the problems I'm running into is here, we've got from this point, or even from this point this way to the end of the material. So right in here, that bar ends right in here, so they've got extra material. It's not cutting straight across. So that just, I'm trying to make up for it by not cutting it, but I'm gonna have to cut it anyway, so I'll just do it that way. And basically what I'll do is I'll mark a line from here straight that way, and then just put the pockets in progressive steps out this way. And the customer shouldn't notice, you know, I mean, as long as it digs right, and it should. I mean, I haven't had any issues with other ones that I've rebuilt, but this one's just posing too much of a challenge for me right now because they're just not the same, and it just stinks. So I gotta make them the same, and then I can start from there. So unless I start from this front edge here and create the radius all the way down to this point, I could do that. It might be something to consider. So yeah, I'll cut some poster board and see if that works. Eh. See how it goes. I got a little radius. Something better than nothing. Now I'll just put this corner up here at the front of my line. Just kind of trace that line. All right, well that makes me feel a lot better because it just wasn't looking right. So now it's at least the same on both sides. If you notice on the far end, there's a notch cut out where this interferes right in here. So that's as far forward as I can move it on that side. And I could probably create a bigger arch, but a lot of headache. So this works real well. All right, gotta cut it now. Feel bad having to cut so much off of it, but they're just not straight across, and I think ultimately the customer will like it better in that it'll seem to cut more even. And one of the challenges also is that these flights sometimes come up at different heights. So as I was measuring, they were still within range where they're about the same, so that's good. But it'll make it a lot easier on me as well. All right, same thing on the other side. All right. There you go. Hold on a second. We look here where that weld went across. It looks pretty full, pretty solid, even though I bent it up. So it was possible to fill it all in, you know, even though I had that slit with the torch, and it came out pretty good. So I was able to get 100% weld in there anyway. So now I got to knock this guy off and start over, which is fine. At least I got both sides the same, and that makes it so much easier on me. And it's funny because had I known that I wanted to fix that, I would have just you know, gotten behind it a little bit or so. Who knows? Either way, we can move forward from here at a little bit easier pace for me, or being able to figure it out a little bit better, because that was just making me nuts. All right, so enough jibber jabber. Gotta keep moving. Okay, next step is to start cutting these out. I ended up laying them out according to this bar, and what I did is I made sure that the opposite side will cut right within this area right here. And a lot of auger manufacturers, they like to stick the pockets right next to each other. Makes it great for laying out, because they're just easy to do. But I like to be a little bit more methodical about laying these out. And the reason I say that is because you don't want these bullet teeth points traveling in the same circle. So as these travel in the same in the diameter of the cut, if they go in the same circle, sometimes rock is so hard that it'll just create rings. And what can happen is, if they're in the same line, you'll get strips of rings that you cut out. And I'll show you a picture of that. I actually got one from a customer. And so you want them to be offset. And you can offset them even if you butt them next to each other compared to the other side. I mean, according to the other side. But my thoughts on that also is that if you have too many teeth on the ground, there's not as much pressure per tooth, which in one sense is good because it makes your teeth last longer. But then also you're not getting the penetration into the rock because you have too many feet, to say, too many contact points onto the ground. And so the less teeth that are touching the ground, the more aggressive they will be, and almost sharper in a sense, because they will dig in close, harder. Almost like if you were to try and push a piece of 3/4 round bar into the ground as compared to a 2x4 into the ground. There's just more surface area touching the ground. Very similar here. So this is the way I like to do them. I haven't had any complaints. They seem to dig very well, and that, and according to the angle, you gotta modify the angle that these come in. These come at a 45-degree angle right here, but at a 45-degree angle, it's not good enough for any good penetration into the rock, so you have to modify it a little bit and make sure that they dig a little bit better. So anyway, I'll be cutting these out next, and it may look a little funny because the teeth are spaced out, but that also makes it easier to cut them out and replace them. So I'll try and dig up an old photo of another auger I did that way, and it came out pretty good. So this one will be the same. All right, let's keep trucking. Okay, so now that I've cut these guys here, put this guy here. These last ones here, I will probably put one a little bit closer in this area, or maybe offset it enough to where the point of the tip, the bullet tooth tip, the carbide tip, is about a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch outside of this edge right here. So that one will be leaning out. And the same thing with this one over here on this side over here. This one will probably be a little bit closer right in this area. So things are looking good. Now it's a matter of tacking these guys in place and start the welding. So I got most of these tacked up already. I still need to do the outside ones. I just wanted to show you, this is the radius that these teeth run in. The other one would be right in here. But let me show you, as this comes around, it lines up, cutting right in the middle of those two right there. Alright, so same thing over here. I'm gonna move this guy over, or this way, like this. Ends up coming around, and it'll end up cutting in between this guys, right there. So that staggered pattern will help cut really aggressively and really quickly. And so it's that's the way I do it, at least. So here, I was having difficulties at the beginning, so I'm going to try and just squeeze a tooth in there, pocket in there. That one right up against this collar, and this one just in here somewhere, and I'll cut this guy down to match. Now, there has been remarks made before that I'm getting rid of the strength from way up here, but actually that's on there pretty good. I mean, if I cut it down another inch or so, it should hold on fine. That's just the way you end up rebuilding these things. You have to cut it somewhere. And so just so long as this guy doesn't spin off, right? But it's welded enough here, welded enough on the other side. This pilot bit that's on here, and the pilot bit that's on here, the teeth sticking out on it should cover some of this area. Because most of the time, these innermost teeth almost never get changed. They just stay good for a long time. It's these outer ones that really take the abuse. And so, like I mentioned, I'll be putting one more here to point out this way. And this side I may actually have to put two of them. Put one right in here, put one just behind it to point out just a little bit, like I mentioned, about 3/8 of an inch or so. So looking good. Another couple little steps here and I'll start welding. The welding is really not that big a deal, so I don't know how much of video I will film on that part. But just the idea as to how to accomplish this is more what I was trying to get across to you guys. All right, keep going. Okay, so we're back at it again. Got this thing flipped over. So now I'll just be welding up in between here. I put a little seal weld because some of the torch cutouts were kind of big, little gaps, no biggie. This, of course, is the weld that I kinked over that piece. So it's looking good so far. Almost done. I just poured in hot. Same thing here. So far so good. Got to elevate it, got to put on a jack. All right. Next. Okay, so if you remember the before and after, much better right there.